Just finished with my trauma-informed therapist on Mondays, noticing that my cheeks are red. And it's interesting to me that that's like a reaction after feeling emotions. So, my brother's dead. I still struggle with intense guilt that while my parents were dealing with the horror of their son dead from falling off a grain bin in an ER, they're being told by my husband when they call him that I'm at rehab. To worsen things, when they try to reach me to say, you need to come home now, my phone is off. No one can locate me. My husband drives to the Northern Minnesota Substance Abuse Center, demands to see me. They tell him that I'm not there. He doesn't believe them and has to be escorted off the property. So my parents are mourning their dead son, my siblings, the death of another sibling, and one sibling can't even be located. I've always I grew up extremely religious. If that's not clear, if you're a follower, you know that. I struggle with that, but to this day, doesn't matter what my current religious status is, the confluence of those events is it just me or... So my brother died on Thursday, August 22nd. On Friday, August 23rd is when people are driving around, looking, calling everywhere for me, and I'm just blissfully unaware and really red in the face. Whew. I was actually staying at the house. I said a friend, I don't really have friends. Like, I know that sounds crazy. Who doesn't have friends? I do have friends. I have one that lives in Fort Collins, one that lives down farther in Iowa. But anyway, this was a technician at a pharmacy that I floated to who was letting me stay there. So that Saturday morning comes that I ended my last video with. I turn my phone on, all these notifications. Call my husband, like, what the hell? And the first thing that he says is just, where are you? And I remember being like, doesn't matter where I am. My brother's dead? What happened? He was 28 years old. An amazing farmer. Climbed up a grain bin to weld shut a leak. Didn't put a harness on because, who dies when you're that young and in that good a shape? I started driving south. Can't remember where my husband met up with me. Continuing. Don't really have a flow for today. Just gonna keep going in the story. One thing that I'd briefly like to go back and mention is, just for my own narrative, I guess, that when I woke up on Saturday, August 24th, and decided to turn my phone back on, I remember my intent that morning was to go for a jog after I woke up. And so I turned my phone on just to, probably have my music. And I remember a very physical feeling. Turned on the phone, tons of notifications. See the first one. There was a very physical feeling that I almost can still remember of my brain like shrinking back into the base of my skull is the best way that I can describe it. And I also remember thinking, I'm probably going into shock. I don't remember where my husband was that night or where he was like when he answered the phone when I finally called. Either way, he drove north to me, I drove south to him. Maybe I just drove to the Mankato home, because I'm suddenly remembering that I was throwing and packing a whole bunch of stuff to go down to Iowa for however long I was going to be there. And just a slight side note, when I did eventually get to Iowa, what I had packed made no sense. Long story short, a friend who was there for me had to like drive to a Kmart, about 30 miles away and buy me things that were appropriate for the funeral, because I believe I had packed like all yoga gear and swimsuits. It was really bizarre. I don't remember my husband and I talking at all, like where I was, I don't remember that part. Like as we then drove from our Mankato rental down to Iowa, which is about a 2.5-hour drive from Mankato to my family home in Iowa. Pulled up outside the home of my parents in the Iowa, and it just still like gives me kind of shivers to remember just the amount of church people that were there to support my parents and my family. Like, it's a good thing. I'm glad that my parents had that massive support network of their church. But there was literally like, I believe there was a refrigerated trailer that had been pulled onto the property with like food from all the ladies who are these ladies who only know how to clean and cook to support, which is great. I'm not saying that's bad. But getting home, it was like, I don't want to see anybody right now. Barely want to see my own family to face a lot of what's about to go down. But I don't want to see anybody else who are all very nosy, understandably. Where have you been? Where have you been since 48 hours ago when this happened? A shining light in the driveway was my friend from Fort Collins who lived in Iowa at the time, going to dentist school. This lovely friend, Lindsay, I had met her at University of Iowa when I briefly did some undergrad there before I moved to Florida to pursue my molecular biology, biotechnology bachelor's, and then went to pharmacy school. But we had clicked. When I click with someone, they stay around because it's rare for me, if you hadn't gotten that drift yet. So had always kept in touch with her, and thank goodness she wanted to keep in touch with me too. She knew my parents pretty well, and she knew Adam, my brother who died. She knew him well. In fact, when I was living in Florida, she visited one spring break from University of Iowa Dental School. She had visited a spring break that my brother and one of his buddies had also visited. So she really got to know my brother, and just fun experiences together. She dropped everything and was at my house waiting when I arrived. I guess she and Matt, my husband, had already been in communication about what was going on with me. So she, after I think I briefly said hi to my family, did hug. I can't remember that part. I'm assuming I hugged my family. I don't remember crying though, just numb shock. My friend Lindsay hauled me downstairs to the bedroom that I have at my parents' Iowa house pretty quickly. And the reason that she is such a good friend is some extremely tough love commenced. I remember sitting on the carpet in that basement bedroom, and she's sitting across from me cross-legged, and she said something like, I'm taking all of it, meaning all the prescription meds that I was using to numb myself. I stared at her, lied, and said I don't have it. She said bullshit, grabbed my duffel, opened it, and pulled out everything that I had. She said, I will give you enough just to help you detox and not go cold turkey. I remember feeling like I almost deserved punishment of the effects of cold turkey to pay for what I had done. I don't even technically know what I mean by what I had done, but I was very guilty for a lot of things. I don't remember my family asking me much about where I was, like my immediate origin family. I remember a lot of nosy church people and relatives asking me where the hell I'd been, but I think my family just was happy that I was home and had a whole lot of other things to think about. I don't really know where to go with this next, whether I dig into in detail the days of being at home, whether I start talking about the intense, horrible physical effects of going cold turkey off of intense benzodiazepine use, if I try to stick specifically with Matt's and my relationship at this time period, I'm going to give it a little bit and think about it the rest of today. Good morning. Happy Friday. I've had some really sweet people reaching out to make sure that I'm okay. And yes, I am. My therapy is going well. My daughter's therapy is going well. Matt's therapy is going well. I know we're not there currently in the story, but it's going well. However, I will continue with the story. My reason for not posting the last 2 days is because I've been really busy. So at work, it's kind of a long story short. There's some deadlines. So work is a little bit more crazy than usual. And we've made the decision to sell our house in Minnesota and move. Yay! So I've been doing like this huge sudden push, super motivated to like sell all the toys that my daughters never play with, which suddenly when they're on the landing ready to be sold, it's their favorite toy in the entire world. You parents know exactly what I mean. Calling realtors just to kind of set up some interviews to see who we want to work with, and then had our first meeting with a realtor yesterday. So definitely been thinking about you guys, and like TikToking with you is on my to-do list, but I feel like it's better prioritized to the bottom, which is what I've been trying to do compared to all this other life stuff going on. I'll just talk about the move really quick. So I think I mentioned in a TikTok that as we were driving back from Christmas visit at my Iowa family's house, my husband had kind of made the comment, and I can't remember the context, but I just remember he had made the comment that I'd love to move and just not tell my family where we go. And even though I loved hearing that, I was like, well, geez, that's extreme. That's not happening. But he kind of keeps suggesting it to the point that he finally said about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, no, I'm serious. I would like to move if you want to move. Have you ever thought about going back to Florida? And again, since mostly my followers are watching this, you know that I lived in Florida for 8 years while I did my molecular biology biotechnology degree and then went to pharmacy school. And Matt lived there for 10 years while he also went to undergrad, then got his elementary ed degree, and then taught for a couple years while I finished up pharmacy school. We loved it there. We were on the East Coast, West Palm Beach. But for the sake of raising kids and a budget that can't afford a house on the East Coast, we're looking at West Coast. I'm not going to say specifically where we're looking, not only because, actually less because this is TikTok, not like I think any of you will stalk me, but more because if his in-laws find this, or if his family finds this, if my in-laws find this, I'm okay with them knowing Florida, but I'm sure as heck going to make sure they don't know where, for as long as I can anyway. But I can say it to you guys now because I've told my parents, I've told my brother and my sister, and yeah. So I'll try to continue on a little bit because I can't leave you with nothing for the weekend. Does that mean I'm people-pleasing? Damn it, maybe. I don't know. So to be honest, it wasn't just work and getting ready for realtor, selling the house, etc. that I had been kind of feeling a little bit rough after Tuesday. It's really hard for me to go back into those places and poke my brother's death. At this point, it was easy for me to talk about the NERC in-law abuse. It's actually even easy to talk about Matt. I was finding it hard to talk about where I was at when my brother died, as far as not just physically, but like mentally, emotionally, and the difficulty of those things coinciding really painfully perfectly. I actually asked my therapist if I was like, he talks about trauma narrative being great and supports that I'm doing this on TikTok, but I kind of like visited with him again, like, is this good that I'm doing? Am I just giving myself like unnecessary pain? And he kind of used the example of a grandpa who all he does is talk about the war, or a grandma who all she does is talk about a loved one. And, it's the dwelling and the refusing to let it go that puts you into dangerous territory of, kind of not letting your nervous system recover. Whereas, if you are kind of doing the intent of just sharing feeling with the intent that you want to move on, that it's okay. So I don't know, am I okay? I'm going to show you a picture of him. There he is. There's my Adam. And that's me on the right or left, whatever the screen looks like, just 13 years younger. I won't share my brother and sister who are also standing next to us just for their privacy. I'm laughing in that picture because he had just farted. I remember. I'm going to show you actually another picture that means a lot to me too, as long as I'm doing this. This picture means a lot to me. That's my brother. The little eyeball that you see is his fiancée Lisa, and then I'm in the sunglasses. That picture was taken the last day that I saw my brother alive. It means a lot to me because we had gone on a vacation down to Arkansas, stayed in a big VRBO, the types of things I'm not doing anymore, but it was fun then. All of us had stayed on this lake home at the VRBO, and this was the last morning. Can't remember why we went down to the dock by the lake. It was a lake home VRBO. Maybe my nephew was jumping off the deck again. Anyway, my brother held out his phone selfie style. He's the one who took this photo. And I remember thinking, why is my brother taking a picture with me? Because that didn't happen. We didn't really take pictures of each other, certainly not selfies. I remember thinking, I'm just going to make a dumb face because I'm uncomfortable. And at the risk of sounding dumb, a voice in my head said, not my own voice, smile. You won't regret it. and that picture exists.